Shadow ambition is what happens when fear drives your effort instead of alignment. So, this is what's commonly called the hustle, right? And the biggest problem with the hustle is that it sells this illusion of more effort equals more value. It conflates movement with meaning. It confuses effort with worth. And so I created a survival myth for myself to help me endure what was unsustainable. I created a story, and I thought that if I mythologized my suffering, I'd be able to tolerate it. And I called it the Grindhaus. And that's where I lived. It was this dark slag pit where I made bones. You know, the wall that was in my way, I dug through the stone with a spoon. It was everything was hard because my life was hard. In part because that's how I perceived it. And so this story that we create, we live inside, and it becomes a prison system. It becomes the tyrant, and we become the slave. Our coping mechanisms become our character because we're swooned by this idea of success that can only come by way of suffering. And so we buy into it. We think that, you know, when I'm successful, it's because I have suffered. When really it's just, here's my prison. I built it myself. The antidote to the prison, the grindhouse, the hustle is alignment. And what I mean by that is building from the inside out, building from your set of values. You're not building from fear. You're not building to prove something. It's not dictated by the market. It's not dictated by the noise or what people tell you to do or inherited scripts from family, friends, society, school. It's from your values. It's from what you believe in. And so the grindhouse comes to be fed by what I think are 5 distorted values. And I actually call them feed. And this is like the villain, the 5-headed dragon in the myth. And feed is force, ego, exhaustion, earning, and discipline. These are 5 distorted values. They're not bad in and of themselves. But when they're all driven by scarcity instead of sovereignty, they become the 5-headed dragon, and each head whispers, howls a gospel of the grind. And we become addicted to this feeling. We live inside this story. We're the main character in this story. And for the grindhouse, I didn't know that's what I was doing. I wasn't like, oh man, I got to create a story around this, otherwise I'm never going to survive. It just happened as a survival instinct, as a mechanism. You end up feeding the dragon. You feed the hustle, and you starve the creator, you. And that's how you get to the point where you have all the things that you quote unquote wanted. And there's a giant void within you. And we've all heard people talk about this. I had millions of dollars. I had the life I thought I wanted, and still I felt nothing. By the way, I'm not saying that. I didn't have millions of dollars. But you hear people say this all the time. And what I've just illustrated is the path to get there. And I was on the path of suffering to salvation. And it's a myth. It's a myth. The myth of the grindhouse. Hard work is not the enemy. I mentioned discipline and feed, and you're like, discipline, that sounds like something good. It is. Discipline's great. It's amazing. And like I said, it turns into the dragon when it's fed from the scarcity response, from the survival, from the shame, from the need to prove yourself to someone or something, or even to yourself. And what I didn't realize was, when you're trying to force yourself to do these things, you begin to resent it, and you enter a cycle of burnout. Whereas you're gnashing your teeth to make this thing happen. You go for a few weeks or a few months, and then you burn out. And then you collect all of your strength and your will, and then you do it again, and then you burn out. And that's the grindhouse. You're constantly grinding yourself down and burning yourself down just so that you can gather everything back up again and do it again. And you're on the hamster wheel. And this story is romantic in a way. There's something in us that believes that there's something so enticing and alluring about poverty, work ethic, pushing through exhaustion. There's something so romantic about that. And what I realized was, once you kind of find this place of alignment and integration, you don't need all that discipline, because the thing that you had to apply so much discipline to in order to do, you just do it because you want to. You wake up early, not because you're disciplined, but because you really love what you're doing. You love the way that it makes you feel. And you're not exhausted in a way of burnout. You're exhausted in a way that makes you sleep better and wake up fuller in the morning. They're two closely related things, right? Because you're with alignment and freedom and joy and vision, you're still working hard. But working hard means something different than, what we hear a lot of, which is, be the hardest worker in the room or something. I used to love that because I was trying to define my work ethic, and I wanted to be known as a hard worker. But what does that mean? What does it mean to be a hard worker? Maybe you're the smartest worker in the room. Maybe you're the most efficient worker in the room. And if you're all of those things in the room, like, find a better room. But see, like, with this mindset, the hustle stops at the edge of your ego, because you don't want to get taken to school. You don't want somebody else to have your number and be ringing your bell. So that's that main difference of, like, feed the dragon, the dread dragon, feed. those things aren't necessarily bad in and of themselves. It's how they're driven. And in order to uncover the intent with which you pursue, you need to cultivate that sense of awareness, which is practically, it's bringing it all the way back to the values of what do you actually value? Do I value exhaustion? Do I value the ego? Like wanting to be the hardest worker in the room? Sound like an old football coach on the edge of a heart attack? No. I don't value force. I value invitation. Right? Because you can force something into existence. It might come into existence, but what do you sacrifice to make that happen? Your soul? You can force something, but you can also invite something. And when you extend an invitation, that thing with which the thing you pursue meets you halfway. It rises up to meet you. There's this old phrase, the universe conspires in your favor. And that's through invitation. And that invitation comes through alignment. So you feed the hustle. The hustle says that you have to earn your place. But freedom, alignment, integration says that you can create from your place. You can create right from where you are, and you don't need to prove it, and you don't need to suffer in order to have a good life. You don't need to suffer in order to meet success. That's what we're sold. That's an illusion. There will be suffering because suffering is inherent in life. We bring suffering upon ourselves through our own mind, through our own perspective, through our own perceptions. There will be suffering, but you don't have to subscribe to the suffering. You don't have to mythologize it and create a story around it in order to make success feel like something that's worth it. So don't feed the dragon. Don't live in the grindhouse. Free the creator. Free yourself and create from where you are.